so years, and more aggressively the last. So a second agent, so two, okay, my left, and in fairness to them, race is a hoax. So I assume the next question from some of you people, well, if because there's a lot of over the last 20 years, there's a lot of people, chiefly conservatives, that would say, well, we are post-racial. There's no racism, blase. And if now they're saying, well, hell, if you're saying that there's no such thing as race, which there is not, it's made up, then there is no racism. Well, not so fast, people. So there are times when people believe things that don't actually exist, but they still behave in a way as though they do. If for you Christian people, does Zeus exist? Well, there were tons of people that believed in Zeus back in the day. And if your God, whatever God you believe in, if your God didn't exist, well, people still believe in him or her, right? So the belief is separate from the reality in a lot of situations. Like I said, we believe in bullshit all the time. Okay, was Jim Jones, who took those people to Guyana, was he the Messiah? Well, a lot of people believed it, even though it wasn't true. Is your personality based upon the month you were born? Like in astrology? Well, some people believe a lot in astrology. I do not. But whether or not it's true or not, people believe it. Okay. And furthermore, if you do believe in astrology, then why do you need God? In my opinion, they both came from the same place, but that's a whole nother topic. And we're definitely going to broach that subject in a future podcast, right? Like, for example, luck. Like, who believes in luck? I don't believe in luck. Okay. But a lot of people do. Well, if you have luck, then why do you need God? So what is it that made this happen? Was it luck or was it God? Okay. The point is that we believe in stupid shit all the time, and the belief may be operational when the fact is that what they believe in doesn't even exist. So it happens all the time. So there can be racism without race actually being a thing. Now, I'm gonna give you guys another factoid. Like racism, the term itself is really a neutral term. It doesn't mean, it's not a positive or a negative. Now, we use it that way, and it's a pejorative, clearly, because that's how we use it. But all racism means is that you're discriminating between races, whether good or bad, right? For example, you can discriminate by saying this Asian person is smarter than this Mexican person. Now, is that a negative or is it a positive? It's you're discriminating between two people. It's like when a military guy goes into an area, he has to discriminate between friendlies and non-friendlies. But the word discriminate doesn't is neutral. It just means that he is discerning characteristics of this thing and has to decide what to do about that thing. So the term racism, right? Someone may say black people are better athletes than white people. So is that a negative thing? Is it a positive thing? Well, that is discrimination and may or may not be true, but the actual it is racism. And sometimes it can be intended as a backhanded compliment, but you're just discriminating between those two things. Now, the racism that we all think about is, in my opinion, tied to white supremacy is classic American racism. And I know people are going to be pissed off about that because it makes it sound like America's this bad place. I don't believe that any place is a bad place, and that's a whole nother subject too. But America has a classic history of white supremacy that has pervaded throughout the entire world based on our expansion throughout the world since World War II. And that's going to be another topic as well. So the classic American racism is the one that's tied to the white supremacy. I mean, so speaking of black people being better athletes, so a buddy of mine was a baseball coach, and he had this kid that told him that his dad had told him that the reason why black athletes are faster is because they have an extra ligament in their legs. No bullshit. Like, this is real shit. Like, people think this type of shit all the time. And this is born out of this bullshit idea of racism. Another situation, like I was in jujitsu not too long ago, maybe 3 months ago, and I was rolling with this guy, and the guy I was rolling with was like, man, this dude is strong. And the guy that was standing there watching us roll, he's like, of course he's strong. He's black. Now, he didn't say that as a joke. He was not playing. And there, after an uncomfortable bit of silence, we started rolling again. But there was no joking. Like, that was like a serious feeling that he has, that black people are stronger, right? So is that racism? Well, yes, it is. And is it a negative? I don't think that he really meant it as a negative. I think he just believes that black people, for some reason, are stronger, or in his mind. So now, is that racism tied to white supremacy? I don't think so. But the racism that we all talk about every day is what I call classic American racism. And that's a racism that's tied to white supremacy. The racism that white people are superior and you need to be in your place, and we want our country back, meaning those who built it. Well, interestingly enough, who actually built this place, right? The people who built the White House, the people who built most of the train tracks, the structures that exist here. But anyway, my point is that the term racism is a neutral term. The true embodiment of the negatively connotated racism, in my opinion, is called classic American racism. And that is a type of racism that has pervaded throughout the world. So anyway, here is another factoid for you guys. Don't be pissed at me. But here is another thing I'm going to say that's going to raise some eyebrows. We are all racist. Now, we are not all classic American racists, but we are all racist. Every single one of us discriminates based on people's skin color because we have been indoctrinated to believe that there is actually this thing called race, and there are differences based on that thing called race. So all of us think that way. We have been indoctrinated to think that way. For example, if you are in a classroom full of Indian people, for example, is there this feeling maybe that you're going to have to study harder than you've ever studied before? Possibly, right? Now, I know that that's a nationality, but most people consider that a race at this point because it's listed like that on a lot of paperwork. So those are kind of considered races, just like blacks and whites are considered races. Okay, which makes it more obvious how stupid we are for believing in that stuff. So we have all been brainwashed to think that there's a thing called race, but we all discriminate. Okay. So, for example, If you see a black person, you might assume he's not the greatest swimmer. Or if you encounter a so and what's also funny is that black people discriminate against black people just like white people discriminate against black people in certain situations. For example, and I'm just saying it because it's true. In a darkly lit neighborhood, if you see a black person in a hoodie walking towards you, the tendency is going to be a little bit more on guard that if you see an Asian person or a white person walking towards you in the same situation with a hoodie on. And that's how we've been trained to think about each other. But it happens within so-called races and it happens without so-called races. But we are all racist. We all discriminate based on what we consider to be races, right? I mean, a lot of that is called stereotypes, but it's still racial discrimination. Now, I'm not saying we are all classic American racists that have that discrimination tied to white supremacy, but we all discriminate based on race. Now, here is another factoid that is going to freak you out or make you resistant to believe in that. All of us, we are all white supremacists.
What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world, built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
No. I don't believe it. It's impossible.
I didn't say it would be easy. I just said it would be the truth.
Now, if you were born after the 90s or, 95 on up, you are definitely going to be less of a white supremacist than if you were born in the mid 80s or earlier. And let me explain. The socialization of a human being comes with what you see, what you learn, what you get taught from your social situation, from your parents, from the kids around, from what you see. And a lot of it comes from the television, especially when we used to watch televisions. Now everybody watches iPads and phones, but it comes from the media in large part. And prior to the mid 80s, every television show highlighted the beauty that America considered beauty, which meant blue eyes, blonde hair, light skin, small ass, small booty, uh, but thinness, thin lips, traditional European characteristics. That was what was considered beauty. And even through the 90s, that was still the standard of beauty. Now, big booties have made a big comeback. So what I'm saying is that if you were born during that time, you have been conditioned into white supremacy. Women in particular, right? They wanted the lighter contacts in their eyes and straight hair. Even today, why do Americans of slave descent, those women, choose to straighten their hair? Because the idea of kinky hair is less palatable than straight, longer hair still to this day. Or people consider lighter eyes more attractive. That is white supremacy engendered into you. And it was even worse in the 60s because you had to actually physically kowtow to white people. You had to get off the curve. You had to use your own water faucets, bathrooms, yada yada. White people had money, you didn't. And as soon as you came into their neighborhoods, which still happens to this day, there's this thing called white flight. So we all still have white supremacy in us because the American idea of what is considered beautiful. Oh, and think about it. Like in the before the Cosby Show, like '84, I think is when the Cosby Show came out. Before the Cosby Show, every black or every American of slave descent was a criminal or a convict or a snitch or a pimp, prostitute. That's what you saw on TV prior to the Cosby Show. And then with the success of the Cosby Show, there were more shows that featured more positive images of Americans of slave descent. But there are still cultural ideas of white supremacy engendered in all of us. All of us. And I know you want to act like it's not true, but it's true. But the good news is that it's getting diffused out over time, which is great. Um, but yeah, so just acknowledge that that is the reality of it. I'm going to play a video of Malcolm X pulled up. He's going to be talking to his group about why they hate themselves. Okay, here we go.
Who taught you, please, who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such an extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself who taught you to hate being what God gave you.
So basically, he's touching on what I'm talking about the training of people in America to believe that European features are better than what they naturally had. So that is an indication of the white supremacy that is conditioned into all Americans. It's like I said, it's diffused and it's a lot less now because the images that we see all over the place, there's every possible image everywhere now, which is great, right? The diversity and stuff. So obviously it's being diffused out, but it's taken some time, and it didn't really start happening until the mid '80s, where you started actually seeing images of Americans of slave descent being positive. Now, I think a lot of people are going to kind of reject what I'm saying here out of hand. I mean, some of the things that I mentioned, I mean, I am certain that they're true, but we have been conditioned to believe in American exceptionalism and that America is positive and has all these features, which it does, right? America has amazing things to offer, and I'd rather be here and living here than anywhere else. So it's not that, but it's also healthy to help people understand the conditions that they exist in and why they exist in those conditions so that we can move forward in a way that's healthy for all of us. Sometimes people would rather just not know the truth. Okay. So think about it. So I don't know if you guys have seen the movie The Matrix. I think The Matrix is the best movie in the history of mankind because it tells us about ourselves. That's why I named my podcast Deconstruction of the Matrix, because this matrix that you live in is not the place that you actually think you live in. And that's why my whole goal is to help educate you, understand the actual world you live in so that you can operate with more understanding. And every subsequent video is going to go in further detail about things and aspects of our matrix that we live in. So this video is kind of an example. In the movie, this guy named Cypher, he's been in the matrix for a while, and he's kind of tired of knowing the truth, and it's a harder existence to know the truth. So he basically betrays his gang so that he can be plugged back in to the false existence, so he can eat steak instead of this little protein stuff that he has to eat every day, and dress in regular clothes and feel like he's rich and all that. So he's betraying his crew so he can be ignorant to the realities of the world that they live in, and so he can go back into the matrix. So this is the video.
You know, I know this steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth, the Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy and delicious. After 9 years, you know what I realize? Ignorance is bliss.
Now, unfortunately, the brainwashing of the concept of race has been so strong that all of us, all of our identities are tied to race in some way. And like I said, this is not a political podcast, but some of the humanity. The reason why I started watching politics was, like I told you, it was about when I saw the humanity start to change. And I believe that Trumpism has created, well, let me rephrase that. I don't think Trumpism created it. I believe that the desire to have Trump as the president is as a result of people whose identity is white in this country feeling like they're losing their country. And I think this is the strongest engine of Trumpism. They believe that he is going to give them their country back. It's not bad. It's not good. It's not indifferent. This is just a human belief. These are all human things that we all experience, we all feel. But I believe that the impetus for people choosing to ignore the lack of every human virtue in that person is because they feel like their identity is tied to their race so much that they want to make sure that their country stays with them. So in the 60s also, like, it's not just the light-skinned people, so-called white people, that I think will have some resistance to this particular video, but also the Americans of slave descent. We were taught to be proud of our blackness, right? We changed it from Negro to Negro to colored to black. And then in the 90s or 80s, it was changed to African American, right? Which is a fallacy because, like I told you guys, every one of you guys is an African American, all of you guys. So, but because a lot of our identities are tied to our race, people's podcasts are tied to them being black, and their whole initiative about what they do personally and publicly in their work is tied to them being black. Some people are going to reject the idea that there's no race based on that, but it's just a resistance to change. But there is no biological, scientific, no factual data or basis for the concept of race. It is a sociological construct to remove the opportunities of a certain group of people so that they did not have access to the resources. That's all it is. It's fake. It doesn't exist. Now, the ideas of classic American racism and white supremacy have pervaded throughout the world. Like, it's not just Americans who feel this way. There are racist or racial identity ideas throughout the world. So if America's influence is pervaded everywhere, both socially, both politically, both militarily. We have tentacles everywhere, and we basically control everywhere. And that's going to be a whole nother topic. So stay tuned for that one. But so much so that people of other countries feel that the closer they are to whiteness, like, kind of sort of like the Native Americans were allowed not to be placed in slavery because they were less dark than the dark-skinned people. Other Indians, like, for example, Gandhi. Very few people know this. So Gandhi, when he was a little younger but still fighting for the liberation of the Indian people regarding the East Indian Company and England, he would implore them to treat the Indians on a higher plane of humanity than the black people. This is no joke. You can look in his writings. He would say it explicitly and over again. It wasn't one time. It wasn't a one-time thing. This is Mahatma Gandhi, the guy who is lauded for his peaceful protest strategy. Yeah, he was a classic American racist in that his racism was tied to white supremacy versus him just discriminating in a generic fashion. So, yeah, so that identity tied to race has pervaded throughout the world, not just here. Race means absolutely nothing. It was just created and it endured because we're not that bright. But the way that the architects manipulate you and control you is to have you bickering about these insignificant differences, like left versus right. Doesn't even exist, especially now. What the hell is left and right? Right? You've got what's conservative about voting for policies that allow people to be snatched up off the street with no legal recourse? What's conservative about that, right? What's conservative about raising the national debt? There's no right, there's no left. It's just people trying to use these differences to control you. Now, at the end of each episode, I'm telling you guys that I am going to present characters in the Matrix. So there's 3 types of characters. There are the rebellion. There is the architects, the guys who control the levels of power, or the levers of power, sorry.
Hello, Neo.
Who are you?
I am the architect. I created the Matrix.
And the agents. The agents are the guys who wear the sunglasses, who are basically trying to keep you blind and keep you stuck in the Matrix, not knowing the realities of the world. the end of every video, I'm going to highlight 1, 2, or 3 of those characters and explain people who are actually telling you the truth, or people who are trying to keep you blind, or describing the architects. Those are people who are running the world, basically. So at the end of this video, that's what I'm going to do. But basically, the way the architects, the people who are running things, control the levels of power is to accentuate our differences and allow us to just bicker about insignificant stuff like race. Now I'm going to talk to you about a rebel, a person who is interested in telling you the truth and is amazing. She is a rebel in the fight against the Matrix to keep us awoke and seeing and learning the truth. Her name is Crystal Ball. She has a TV show called Breaking Points, and she is absolutely amazing. She's super knowledgeable. Now, the only thing I don't like about her is she calls herself a lefty, right? I don't like that, because once you choose a team, it's hard for you to be objective and tell the truth. But this particular person will call out everybody who's full of shit on the left, right, middle, everywhere. She has a show called Breaking Points with a right-wing guy named Ingenti or something like that. And that provides some balance to the show, but I trust her because I have a video that it's a video that highlights how you vote for someone or how you choose someone to lead you. Well, one of the first point in that is, does the person actually believe what they're telling you? And I am certain she absolutely believes what she is telling us. Crystal Ball, I'm going to play a little bit of her for you so you can see that she is a killer. She don't mess around, and you can trust the information that she provides for you. Okay, so this is her destroying Bill Maher's newly found centrist center-right self on his own show. So let us play this clip.
This inflationary problem is because we put too much money into the economy. There's way too much government spending, and that's why we have inflation. So that's a large part of that. It's just basic economics. And
that is not basic economics. We had this thing called a pandemic. We had a supply chain crisis, and by the way, there's a war in Ukraine.
It played a role. It's played a role.
So to act like the only reason we have problems now is because people got a little bit of money in their bank account is just not honest.
And a little bit of money, they got more than we spent in World War II. So don't act like
hold on. Hold on.
Don't act like, you said don't act. Don't act like we had to react to the pandemic exactly the way we did. We had to spend $6 trillion.
Okay, but how about the trillions that the Federal Reserve shot at Wall Street? For some reason, people don't get upset about that.
And that
fueled the trillions of dollars the Federal Reserve shot at Wall Street to backstop the stock market and the bond market. No one gets upset about that, even though that was a massive
I don't know what
factor in
you're talking
inflation.
about. What do you mean shot at Wall Street? When are we talking about?
We're talking about buying assets, buying stocks, buying bonds, buying treasury bills so that they expand the balance sheet. This is during the crisis, the coronavirus crisis. When the stock market crashed, that is what the Fed did. They went into action. They shot trillions of dollars.
But the stock market didn't crash during COVID.
Now it's crashing. It's crashing now.
It crashed, and the Fed came in and backstopped it. That's what happened.
It crashed and we never heard about it?
No, it crashed. Go back and look at it. It fell off a cliff. The Treasury bond market stopped functioning, and the Fed took extraordinary action it's never taken in history.
Somehow
no one gets upset.
The first week of
somehow nobody gets upset about the rich people who got tons of money and tons of support, way more than working class people did. But oh my God, people were able to feed their kids and they had a little bit of money in their bank accounts. It was the worst thing in the world. That is one small part of the inflation story. And it is, by the way, not the only thing that we can deal with to get out of this mess.
Well, gas prices.
Biden has
Is it a small part, Jamie?
Gas prices we can largely attribute to an administration that's been waging war on the fossil fuel industry.
That's ridiculous.
And now
they drilled more than everybody. I mean,
that's a talking point.
U.S. production.
No.
Okay, U.S. production is up. It will be at record levels next year. The fossil fuel companies themselves are flush with cash, but will not invest in new drilling because they would rather give it to their shareholders. That's the truth. So There's a lot going on.
Very stressful.
Yeah.
It
Also,
is.
the stock market crashed in
Destroyed.
March of 2020. Like what? What are you talking?
Destroy those people. So I'm gonna highlight another video where she destroys this dumbass right wing. She probably ends her career. Her name is Tommy Lauren, and Crystal Ball absolutely murks the hell out of this chick, and she had no business being anywhere near a television screen anyway. So let me pull this up for you.
They're just farmers. It's bullshit, and you know it's bullshit. But what's weird to me is Democrats will go out of
It's
your
weird
way.
to me that you just accept whatever this administration says when they lie all the time.
Crystal Ball of Breaking Points was a guest on Tommy Laren's show to talk about a whole host of topics. They talked for about 48 minutes. You can watch the entire thing on Tommy Laren's channel. I wanted to share a couple of clips that I thought were the most interesting. So we're going to take a look at these clips of Crystal Ball debating with MAGA commentator Tommy Laren. I want to share my thoughts on this as well. Let's check it out together.
When Pam Bondi came out and said, yeah, I
when
disagree.
Trump came out and said the exact same thing and said, you're not allowed to criticize me.
No, he
That's
did not say
free
that.
Speech.
He never said
Yes,
that.
He,
He
did.
said,
He
we're cracking
literally
down on
did.
Antifa and
You can
domestic
go look it up.
terrorists. Do you not?
You
and
can
I
look
guess,
it up.
I guess I would ask you this. Do you not think that Antifa and their tactics, which I've seen firsthand, do you not think Antifa and the things that they pull, particularly in places like Seattle and Portland, do you not see that as domestic terrorism?
I think crime is crime and should be dealt with as such. But in the same way that I objected to the mass surveillance of the Bush administration and the expansion of the terror state apparatus that has occurred ever since then, I vociferously object to this attempt to use Palantir to surveil everything that all of us say for wrongthink. God forbid that we criticize Israel. God forbid that we criticize what ICE is doing. That's the regime that they're putting into place, Tommy. I mean, that's what they are trying to effectuate right now.
Well, I
and we saw
disagree
it
with
first
you
with
on
the
that
student
point,
visa
but I don't
holders
agree
because
with
they were the
mass
lowest hanging
surveillance
fruit.
Yeah,
they were the lowest hanging fruit. And now it's coming for American citizens who also, by the way, are being caught up in these immigration raids as well. So this isn't just staying with, the people you might be more comfortable with. This has huge impacts on all of us, and especially as people who make our living through our ability to speak and to say at times provocative things. Like that's part of the job. And that's exactly what this administration is really trying to go after.
Chris, I'm
and
not
make
disagreeing with
not
you.
Not that nobody won't be able to say anything, but that they have to think twice. I mean, you mentioned Google and YouTube, and then I'll shut up and let you say the next thing. But they just had to do some, multi-million-dollar settlement and basically pay tribute to the Trump administration because they want to make sure their deals can go through and they get their tax breaks or whatever it is that they want. That's what all of these companies are doing. And we are totally dependent on these big companies.
You are saying that. All this stuff is not that we have the companies that actually came out and said Biden administration pressured us to remove this, this, and that. But you are just assigning that to these companies because you believe
that was reported within Disney. No, that's not true. That was reported about the deliberations with regard to Jimmy Kimmel.
So why
they
is
didn't
he
actually
back
have
then?
a problem with what he said.
Because all these Americans now, his ratings are back in the tank.
Because 1.7 million.
Yeah, now the ratings are back in the tank.
People canceled Disney Plus.
Yeah, the ratings are back in the tank. He got that great big boost, and then boom, his audience left again, and they will. And I'm all for him being on air.
Tommy,
I think he should be. I think he should fail on his own.
I haven't watched Jimmy Kimmel in ages.
No
I
shit.
don't know what he has to say.
Nobody is.
It's fine. Obviously, these are all dinosaur programs that are going to go away eventually. It's about the principle. I stood up where a lot of people during the Biden years that I have no ideological agreement with whatsoever, because it's the principle of protecting free speech, protecting the First Amendment, even the right to say things that are offensive to people, that are provocative, that are outrageous.
And
so if you have a government that is trying to weaponize all of their agencies to try to chill speech
that's where you
and
lose
coerce
me.
the
That's where you
media.
lose. I don't think that they're doing that. Now, I believe in free speech. I don't believe that Kimmel or Colbert were taken off the air because of President Trump. I don't believe you on that. But you're talking about speech, and I agree with you on speech, all right? I believe you should be able to say provocative things. I think that there is a limit when it comes to credible threats. But outside of that, I'm more talking about, you mentioned the National Guard and the troops, and I asked you about Antifa. I'm talking about actions now. I'm not talking about words. I'm talking about actions. When Antifa goes out on the street and they light things on fire, or they're firebombing an ICE facility, things of that nature, do you not think that the National Guard might be helpful in deterring some of that violence, not just to protect the federal agents, but also the federal buildings? And I don't know, maybe make the area a little bit safer for the businesses and others that are operating in that vicinity to be able to carry about their daily business without being antagonized by freaks who consider themselves to be Antifa warriors?
First of all, let's talk a little bit about Antifa. Antifa, as you know, just stands for anti-fascist. I think we should all be anti-fascist. I would suspect that you would view yourself as also being anti-fascist. So Antifa as this like well-organized, well-oiled machine thing is a right-wing fantasy made up and invented out of whole cloth. So let's just put that on there.
I'm so glad that Crystal Ball points this out.
I want to let.
Of course, we had actual. I was watching, and they always say he's not, was doing all this stuff to silence speech. He wasn't trying to
video.
We got
Crystal,
this.
they're not.
And, so
and
if you
local
have
law
certain,
enforcement has been hamstringed by your Democrats who want everybody to be doing arts and crafts out on the street. And you know that damn well.
That's
they
ridiculous.
They don't prosecute crime,
so
Crystal. They don't
That's
prosecute
so silly,
crime. That's why you have people that have been arrested
crime
36 times
in the city of Portland.
Oh, Portland is just a
crime
fever
reduction
dream.
in the city of Portland. Baltimore, Maryland has the lowest homicide rate right now, on track, lowest
Crystal,
on
would you
record.
go walk around
but crime
Baltimore
is going
at night?
down, so you can't.
Crystal, would you go walk around Baltimore at night by yourself?
I would be fine walking around Baltimore.
I'd love to see it.
At
Would
night.
you film it
I'm
next
not
time?
afraid of this country.
I need one more video because yeah, she's housing everybody. She's a monster. So you guys can trust her. Whether it's left, right, she's going to steer you in an accurate direction. Okay, so one more video. She's smacking the hell out of Piers Morgan and some other guy. Hold on, let me. All right, so now she's housing Piers Morgan and Clay Travis, another. But anyway, let's let Crystal handle her business.
The Democrats have just crashed to a new 35-year low in popularity. Trump has just announced a new trade deal with the EU, which is more advantageous to America than the previous deal. Are you prepared to give Trump any credit today?
I will give him credit for humiliating the Europeans effectively. But in terms of delivering for the American people, I mean, remember what we were sold originally? 90 deals in 90 days? How did that work out? And now we're going to have tariffs put on, especially key pharmaceuticals coming out of Europe, not to mention European cars. So what you're likely to see is prices go up for your average working class American. So no, for the American people, I think that this is not even close to a win.
And reducing the number of people coming in illegally on the southern border from 10 million in 4 years to, I think it was 6,000 last month. You give him credit for that?
He certainly has cracked down on the border, no doubt about it. But, you know, the cruelty of this immigration system, we're learning more and more about the men who were sent to CCOT with no due process, who were raped and tortured and abused. We're learning more about the conditions in Alligator Alcatraz. I mean, it's a horror show, which is exactly why the American people are revolting against all of his immigration policies across the board, even though that had previously been a strength for him. Well, let me just clear up for your audience. I am not some liberal Democratic sycophant who capes for the Democratic Party and can never give Trump credit. In fact, in his first term, I actually supported the tariffs that he put in place because I thought they made some sort of sense. This term, there is virtually nothing, maybe changing like the pressure on the shower heads, that executive order, that I can get behind. And I'll tell you why, Piers. First of all, his major quote unquote accomplishment at this point is the big, beautiful bill, which will strip healthcare away from millions of people in order to fund a tax cut for the people who need it the least. Second of all, the level of fascistic cruelty with regard to the immigrant population here is more horrifying than I ever could have even anticipated. Deploying the military in American streets, rounding up people at Home Depot, sending them off with no due process to a slave labor camp. Are you kidding me? The idea that this is a peace president, hey, I thought he was going to solve the Ukraine-Russia crisis in a day before he even got into office. That's still ongoing. No changes there. We have backed and funded an absolute campaign of starvation and horror in Gaza, and we started a new war with Iran. So on every single level, this presidency has been a chaotic horror show and a disaster. And the people who will be hurt the most in this country are the very working class people that Trump claimed and lied to support. So I give him an F across the board. And again, I am not some Trump deranged. I've given him credit in the past. I said it was good when he went and talked to the leader of North Korea. I said it was good when he met with the Taliban to try to negotiate a deal. But he never actually had the stones to pull out of Afghanistan. But in any case, he's a disaster this time. I could not in my wildest dreams have imagined how terrible this administration would be and how quickly here only 6 months in.
Mic drop. Anyway, Crystal Ball, Breaking Points. She's fantastic. She's super knowledgeable and she has integrity. We have entered a time where almost no one has maintained integrity. You guys saw I did a video on Joe Rogan last time. He has completely lost all of his integrity. And he had integrity, like literally. Like I was super impressed by his level of integrity early on, but he's lost it. So anyway, Crystal Ball, watch her. She is an agent of the resistance, keeping you informed, keeping you understanding what's really happening. You can trust her. Dan Rather is an agent of the Matrix, trying to keep you blind and keep you believing BS. Love you people. Have an amazing rest of your week. So I hope you guys enjoyed some of the stuff that I brought to you today. Please like and subscribe and
push the goddamn button. Push the goddamn button. You heard what she said.
Any comments are beneficial. If I went awry and I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, let me know. I am interested in learning. Anytime I have a conversation with somebody, I'm not having a debate. I'm having a learning opportunity. So I am a big learner. I feel like the best gifts anyone can give me is teaching me something. So if you have comments that help me to learn things better, please submit them.